Are there any themes you wouldn't deal with in theatre for young audiences?
Well, that's a touchy subject, which also deals with the fact that I have to make a living from this. And from my experience, the fun shows in our repertoire are the best sellers. You know, they sell like loads. Whereas when we try to be more political or touch subjects like religion or ADHD, self-abuse, sexual abuse, I mean, all those subjects, you know, I mean, if I could do it again, I wouldn't touch those subjects because I've lost so much money on that. I mean, I made shows which I thought were important, which rang true with the young audience, and the feedback was that this is important. But in many cases, the grown-ups didn't dare to buy the shows. And somehow I can understand that too, because, you know, we come to a school, we do a show about sexual abuse, we leave teenagers in tears, and then we leave, and the teachers are left with them, you know, having to deal with that. So it's much easier to just buy a show which is amusing. It's safer.
Do you think that's a flaw with the system, though? The fact that these shows that might be more important don't get an audience, that they're in a sense censored by the people who make the decisions?
I'm a bit torn because yes, I want to do shows that are important, but then again, if I were to buy a ticket, you know, if I were to spend my spare time buying a ticket for a show, would I go to see a show about sexual abuse? I don't know. Maybe I should. Another thing is that I think the lesson from all this is to be more subtle. Like, I think one of the challenges in Norway is that we have so much freedom, you know, we can say whatever, do whatever, everything is allowed, and we speak with capital letters. But when everything is allowed, things become more, well, less subtle. I think, is there a way in which we can say all those important things, but in a more, you know, subtle way? Maybe using poetry. Yeah.
That you know, if you want to really work on that subtle level, that demands a lot, I think, from both the writer and from the theatre
very
makers.
difficult.
Yeah, we're going to be working with metaphor, perhaps, on quite a complex level.
Yeah, but to make a more understandable example, for example, swear words. I mean, there's a trap that you're thinking, okay, I'm going to do a show for teenagers, and I have to be realistic, and therefore we need to use swear words. We need to say fuck, you know, in every other sentence. But by doing that, it becomes so crude, you know, so vulgar, and it also distracts you from the story and what you're trying to say. And also, I know loads of teenagers who don't, you know, use swear words in every other sentence. So, can you do a show about something important for teenagers and still dare to be poetic or dare to be, well, truthful without being vulgar?
Do you think a writer really needs to do a lot of research in terms of meeting the audience, not just research on the subject matter, but actually...
Yeah, definitely. I think in the theatre we need to be a mirror, you know. I mean, a writer needs to spend time on his or her own, definitely, but also if you're going to write about things that are important for children, you need to be out there and really feel the importance, you know. But also, I find that in many cases, the shows that hits me, you know, they also resonate to my own childhood. So sometimes, you know, I make shows more for the child within me.
Do you think there's a danger in that? Because your childhood was very, even my childhood, was very different to the childhood of those growing up today. You know, the world has changed a lot. Do you think there's a, in your, I mean, this show you were talking about, Vesleblokken, for example, that is a once upon a time show that happened a long time ago. Have you ever sensed any danger in this sort of romanticism that can come with thinking back?
Well, talking about that show, because that's a good example. There are certain things that ring true through every generation. I mean, but also, like in that show, which takes place 150 years ago, for example, I mean, if you were sick, in most cases, you would die. And when kids nowadays see that show, and we come to that point in the show that they laugh, because it's like, it's funny, and it's not going to die, is it? So, there are certain things that feels alien to the kids nowadays, and certain things that still rings true. Yeah, but I think it's important with Once Upon a Time, and I think it's important. It's important with what takes place today, as well as one day in the future. What will that look like? You need to challenge your mind and, you know, think about the brain as a muscle. You need to exercise it.